Hey everyone, Kyle once again, and welcome back to another movie review on Halloween month and back on the Friday the 13th franchise. Now next is be reviewing the sequel, Friday the 13th Part 2. The body count continues. Definitely another good sequel in the franchise, and this is the film that introduces us to Jason Voorhees. And I enjoy the sequel. And it's well directed, and this time it's directed by Steve Miner. I like Steve Miner. He go on to direct the next sequel, Part 3, and then he go on to direct House, the 80s horror comedy film House. I do enjoy that film. Definitely a good movie. And then you go on to direct Lake Placid, then Halloween H2O. And sadly, you go on to direct to that one of the worst remakes I've seen, that piece of shit Day of the Dead remake. Hate that movie. That's definitely Steve Miner's worst movie. He also directed a film called Texas Rangers. I have not seen that film, but it was panned by critics and was a huge flop. I have not seen that film. Didn't saw a trailer to it. It didn't look that good. But I enjoy Part 2 and Part 3, and I enjoy Lake Placid and Halloween H2O. House I really do enjoy. And he did go with Part 2. With good credit to Steve Myers that he helped introduce Jason Voorhees now as the killer, and in Part 3 he also introduced us to his hockey mask. Steve Miner does lose a little bit of credit on that as well. And the film came out a year after the first film. Like, the first one was 1980. This came out the next year, 1981. And the film still was a hit on a minimum budget like about 1.25 million, and it made about 21 million overall. So the film was a hit, and like the first film, it met with negative reviews. It has a 6.1 on IMDb, a little bit lower than the first film, but still has a high enough to get a 6.1. But it has a 34% Rotten Tomatoes. So the film still gets negative reviews, and Roger Ebert says this time he called it a cross between mad slasher and dead teenager genres. 24 movies a year feature a mad killer going berserk, and they're all about as bad as this one. Some have a little more plot, some have a little less. It doesn't matter. So, well, that being said, though, at least he didn't go overboard like what Gene Siskel did regarding about the first film. But I like this one. I think I do like it a little bit more than the first film. I mean, the first one was a classic, no doubt about it, though. But I like this a little bit more than the first film. And it has a good cast for, especially our main lead character Ginny, played by Amy Steele. I remember her from the original April Fool's Day, and I thought she did really good in this film. I thought she's one of the best leading girls in this franchise. I really did enjoy her. She was a strong character, and definitely one of the best of the lead girls in this whole franchise. Definitely. And I enjoy her, and I liked her in April Fool's Day. And it takes place sometime after the first film. They said 2 months. And Alice, Adrienne King comes back as Alice. She's she's coping with dealing with what happened in the first film, and you get this whole thing where Jason. Some people point out Jason, where is she, because it's not anywhere near Crystal Lake. It's like, oh, where is she? Where did Jason find her? How does he know where she lives? Well, the thing is, though, maybe because it said that when he witnessed his mother being beheaded by her, maybe he after being in the hospital, maybe after she was let go, maybe he followed her to her home without being seen. Maybe that's why. So that's why he's able to kill her with an ice. He's able to kill with an ice pick after she discovers the head of his mother in the fridge, and just stabs her in the head with an ice pick. But it was sad. It was sad. It's sad to see that Alice get killed. Because I like Adrienne Kane in the first film, so it sucked about that though. And then after he just goes back to where his home is, and then you have the then it shows like it's like now 5 years. Now it shows like it's 5 years later now. It explains they got this like new group of camp counselors that are like near Camp Crystal Lake. It's a new place, but it's near Camp Crystal Lake. You have Walt Gorney come back as Crazy Ralph. You know, you're all doomed. You're all doomed. Yeah, these two teens that they get their truck towed, but all it turns out it's a joke by this guy named Ted, played by Stu Charnew. And this guy I recognize. He was in John Carpenter's Christine. He was one of the bullies. Later on, he gets killed. You know, at the garage. When Christine rams the car in the garage, and he's standing in the gasoline when the car explodes, and he was screaming, "Ah!" That's that guy who's the jokester in this film, character Ted from Christine. And all bunch of camp counselors to go there. Like some other ones, you have like this guy in the wheelchair and young couple that met Crazy Ralph earlier, and a few others. And Jenny, who's with this is with this guy named Paul, by John Furey. And one thing that's noted were that the couple met with Crazy Ralph. Well, first of all, when during the night when it's on the first night, Crazy Ralph looks at where window where Amy Steele and John Furey are about to kissing. He turns around, then Jason kills him with was it a barbed wire, or it was something that just choked him. Well, same time cut his throat as well. And then by the next day, the couple that met Crazy Ralph earlier, they are near Camp Crystal Lake, and they see, like, one thing I would say that, well, there was the dog, they had a dog there, I think his name was Muffin, and it showed, like, it was, like, walking up to Jason, and the couple find it was like a dog, the same dog, looked like it was dead, killed, but I guess it's like it shows that it's the dog at the end of the film, which I'll get to though. But it was a little confusing right there though. But same dog or not though. Then the cop shows up. They got in trouble for going near the place. And as he's driving, he sees Jason run in, and he goes after him until he chases him to this old rundown shack. And as he opens the next door to the next room, he's thinking, "Oh my God!" Then gets a hammer right into the back of his head. And then when the nighttime comes, one of the teens, the counselor, goes for a little skinny dipping, and the guy was jokingly taking her clothes, but that guy, he gets his foot caught on one of the ropes, and he's getting hung upside down. While she goes and tries to get someone to cut him down, then he gets killed by Jason with his throat slit with a machete. And when she turns to see him, she screams, then she stops, and she screams, then she gets killed off screen. And while it's going on, Amy Steele, John Furey, and some other camp counselors, including Stu Charnew, some other people, they go to town at a bar, while our two main leads, they go back to the camp. That guy, Ted, he stays behind. So he's like one of the few, and some other counselors, they survive in the film, because they stayed at the bar while the two leads go back. So that guy from Christine, he lives because he's been left at the bar. And while they go back, and while as they're on their way back, And it shows that Jason, and one like Kevin, like the first one, the memorable kill for me was Kevin Bacon's death. This one for me is that the guy in the wheelchair, he goes outside to see what's going on, and then he gets whacked in the face with a machete, and he falls down the stairs while it's raining. Shows Jason Voorhees he doesn't care about the handicapped people anyway, so he kills a guy in a wheelchair across the face. I was like, oh man, that's messed up, you know. But Jason Voorhees doesn't care about the handicapped people. But yeah, that was a memorable death, you know, across the face, and then he goes rolling down the stairs. And that girl that wanted to make it with him, before her, the young couple that ran with Crazy Ralph and they got in trouble with the law before, as they're making out, Jason Voorhees gets a spear and just goes and rams it right through both of them. And then when the girl comes back, Jason pops out of bed with the sack on his head, stabs her in the stomach, and then Ginny and Paul, they come back, and then they get a fight with Jason, and then the guy, I guess the Paul, he gets knocked out, and then Amy Steele, she runs away, and then Jason Voorhees, he's just chasing all over the place, like in the car. Gets pitchfork and stabs right through the convertible, the part that goes like the convertible Volkswagen. Pitchfork right through the door, and then Amy Steele runs the body of Crazy Ralph, and then one place to another where she ends up in the old shack and finds Pamela Voorhees' her head, you know, her corroding head basically, with a sweater, and that one girl that got killed off screen, and the dead cop is laying on the side. And then she gets the idea, because for the story earlier, which I thought was a good scene, where the Paul character, he was telling about the story of Jason, how he drowned as a child, and ended up turning into a joke by that funny guy Ted. But I liked how he told the story, though. Just very subtle, like, you know, Jason, he drowned as a child. Like, that sort of tone. So, she puts on that sweater, and trying to talk to Jason, like, through, like, as her mother, as his mother. You know, Jason, Mommy is talking to you. And you see a guest appearance of Betsy Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees, so, like, Jason hallucinating, imagining her as his mother. Jason, you know. Jason, Mommy is talking to you. Attaboy, Mommy has something for you. And she was going to hit him, but then he quickly realizes he blocks it, and Paul comes back in, tussles with him, and then Amy Steele takes a machete and goes around right through his shoulder. And when they get back to the cabin, now here's the thing that is confusing, like, when they hear something at the door, and Amy Steele gets the pitchfork, gets ready, the door opens, then it's that dog, Muffin. Now, and then after when he says, "Oh, come here, Muffin," then Jason pops in, which is played by a different guy. It's played by a different guy, but unmasked though. Even though it's not Tom Savini doing the effects this time, but still a good makeup. Like, it's like Jason with a mullet, basically, deformed Jason with a mullet. And the thing is, though, when it comes morning and she's put in an ambulance, it's like, where's Paul? Because I don't know. We never know what happened to Paul. Like, it's supposed to be like a dream sequence. What happened when she was attacked, or we don't know what happened to Paul. Like, he disappeared because she's asking where's Paul. We don't see him being put in an ambulance. So, was he killed or not? That's something that never made any sense. You know, like, I don't know. That's something that always didn't make sense, because that dog, like, we thought that dog got killed at the beginning where the couple found it, but I guess it wasn't. It was a different animal. That's another thing. It looked like the same dog that was killed, because they didn't have two dogs; they had one. And then after that, the dog that was there. I guess it got killed. And after when Amy Steele was attacked by Jason, We don't know what happened to Paul. She's asking, where is he? We don't see him. He's, like, now disappeared. So we don't know what happened. And that's when the film ends with, on Pamela Voorhees' head. So... But anyway, regardless about that nitpick about the ending, though, I still enjoy the sequel. A couple of good kills, like the guy in the the guy in the wheelchair. He's that's the most memorable death in the film for me. But it's still good, solid kills, but the guy in the wheelchair is definitely the most memorable death scene in the film. And I'm glad we introduced to Jason Voorhees. I didn't mind him wearing the sack over his head. You know, he's wearing overalls as well. Old raggy ass overalls with wearing a sack. But Amy Steele, I definitely enjoyed her. Strong character. The guy who played Paul, John Furey, I think he was good as well. But as the guy, because there are two guys who played Jason, especially though the one guy who did it just unmasked at the end scene though. But for the most part, the guy who played Jason for the most movie was good as well. And you know, Betsy Palmer's cameo appearance as Jason hallucinating as seeing the girl as his mother. Steve Meyer did a good job directing the film, and say the same thing he did with the third film, which I'll get into next. But like critics are not fans of the franchise, but many people today are fans. I'm a fan of the franchise. The first one's a classic. The second one's a good sequel, and it's much shorter than the previous film. The first one was like 95 minutes. This is only about 87 minutes, so it's definitely much shorter than the first film. And so then by the next year, then the next one comes out. Next one is in 3D, because during the time of the 80s, the whole craze about 3D, like Jaws 3D, Amityville 3D, now Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. But yeah, but that's gonna be for next time. So yeah, that's my review for Friday the 13th Part 2. Good sequel, definitely a good sequel. But stay tuned for Part 3 and more to come during the month of Halloween. Later.